As I'm sure you know, because you're stuck in the submarine from it, Iron Lung is a game made by David Szymanski and published to Steam around March of 2022. This means I'm about 2 years late to making a video about it. Not late at all. Though my channel is pretty new, so I think it's a bit fair that I can be a tad bit late to the party. Of course, it's not all that out of the public eye, because Markiplier's making a movie about it, and I'm pretty sure that'll be great, because Dead to Sleep is also great, but that's not what this video is about. This video is actually more so just a general rundown of my opinions about Iron Lung and some things that I think about it, rather than just like this, ooh, spooky, look at this hidden thing that you've never thought of. I mean, you probably have, but what I consider to be the less talked about horror of Iron Lung that is one of the things that to me makes it so scary. And I will talk about that later. I'm putting a timestamp on screen. There are no scripts to these videos. I do not know when that time is. It could literally be 50 minutes from now. But there's a timestamp on the screen currently. I don't know if I put it back there. I don't know if it was there originally. Whatever. I think a good place to start is a rundown of the story of Iron Lung, and even though I'm sure you've heard the story of Iron Lung explained by 100 different people 1,000 times, I think I'll have a pretty funny explanation of it, so. Or not funny, but just interesting, because well, I mean, you're watching this video, so you probably find my talking interesting, right? I don't know. Decide that on your own. In the world of Iron Lung, long before the game takes place, humanity colonizes some untold region of space, as in, like, humanity's expanded beyond Earth at the very least, and has colonized and presumably terraformed Mars. And in fact, Mars actually somehow has a higher population than Earth at the time of the Quiet Rapture. I don't exactly know how it does. I feel like Earth is kind of the best place for life, but I don't know, maybe people just really love Mars. And some unknown time after humanity has colonized Mars and space in general, the Quiet Rapture happens. The Quiet Rapture being a strange and unexplained event in which all stars and habitable planets suddenly disappeared from the universe, just at random. And another weird detail about it is that no one can recall having any visual contact with these planets at the time of the Quiet Rapture, which I will get into later because that is part of a theory I have about what the Quiet Rapture is. And because all stars and habitable planets are just gone, the only thing left are asteroids and moons floating through the universe endlessly, and space stations that are still inhabited by humans. And you may be asking yourself, if all the stars and habitable planets disappeared, then why are there still stars in the sky in the main menu screen? And that is because of a phenomenon known as ghost lights. Essentially, the speed of light is absurdly fast, and yet not fast enough. As in, the speed of light is so fast that a single photon can wrap around the entirety of the Earth in a few milliseconds. But put that on a scale of space, in which the majority of it is just empty space, then you kind of have a problem. A good example of this is the time it takes for light to travel from the sun to Earth, which is 8 minutes. Now imagine that 8 minutes on a cosmic scale, like, you know, several million light years, and it can take thousands of years for the light to fade, as photons just drift across the universe from a star that vanished. And the thing is, this happens all the time in real life. There are stars in the night sky you can see all the time that died thousands of years ago, hence ghost lights. And sometime after this cataclysm happens, two main factions form, Eden and the COI, or Coalition of Iron. Eden came from the satellites orbiting Mars, and they still present a very strong Martian patriotism, even having their own separate time from the COI. Where the COI uses a timescale used on the previous rotation of the Earth, much like we do in real life, and Eden uses one based off the rotation of Mars. And Eden is probably called Eden because they actually have the last trees remaining in the universe, whereas the Coalition of Iron is named such very appropriately for their love of iron and steel, which their satellites are mainly made out of. And at some point, these two factions discover 4 moons that contain oceans of human blood that just miraculously stays in liquid form. The 2 of these moons that are actually given names during the game are Z8 and AT5, which are both under the control of the COI, the other 2 presumably being under the control of Eden. And at some point in the story, Eden attacked the COI, and during this attack, one of the several COI satellites, the filament station, was destroyed, now remaining a radioactive husk that is completely uninhabitable. And during this war, the COI captured many prisoners of war, one of which being the player character. And it is explained in the terminal logs that the COI uses a form of convict realization that includes just putting them up to community service work, until they can be incorporated into COI society. In other terminal logs, it explains that Z8 was, for a long time, the main form of convict realization that the COI performed, until at some point AT5 was discovered, and we can assume that the COI discovered something in the blood ocean of AT5 that made them switch the convict realization to AT5, and pretty much abandon Z8. And as you know, we find out from the story what this probably is. Throughout the game, we are undergoing conviction realization in a burner submarine officially named the SM-13 and nicknamed the Iron Lung. Probably named after a medical device of the same name that kept patients with full-body paralysis polio alive. We are being sent down into the blood ocean on the moon AT5. This is presented as a research mission under this conviction realization idea, but in reality it is most likely just an execution method. As explained by a note we can find on the floor of the Iron Lung, which I have no idea how maintenance crews and cleanup crews didn't pick that up, but, you know, just left it, I guess. Gameplay-wise, you just pilot the Iron Lung. That's actually pretty much it. Due to the extreme depths at which this extremely ramshackle and rusty submarine is being sent to, the porthole has to be welded shut. I mean, all you have for navigation is coordinates, collision detection, a camera, and 4 buttons for controlling your movement. And this actually really helps the gameplay in forcing you to keep a very close watch on where you are and what you're near, all the while forcing you to learn how to read and use coordinates as you navigate through the deep trenches of this blood ocean. This really helps to sell this, immense sense of not only claustrophobia, but extreme thalassophobia, which just kind of go hand in hand together. Throughout the game, you're forced to use this minimalistic navigation system to capture photos of various points of interest around the map, which just kind of consist of really strange plants and obelisks, buildings, a fish. You're not really supposed to be taking the picture of the fish, but the fish is there. Which leads into the fact that this whole game just builds up to you realizing that you're being stalked by some kind of undersea creature, which you would think would be the giant whale you bump into, but no, it's this weird anglerfish-looking motherfucker. And these photos, already being strange and unusual, become increasingly so throughout the game as you approach the 9th and final point of interest. And as you approach this final place, the submarine is filling of blood, everything's just going to hell, and then you've been invaded by a fish. It's a lot more climactic than that. The whole game takes about an hour to play, and that whole hour just slowly builds tension, building up to this jump scare, meaning that even though I knew exactly when the jump scare was coming, I had full expectation the jump scare was about to happen, it scared the shit out of me. After you die, the final text of the game describes that the COI is incapable of retrieving the submarine, of course because it's in pieces at the bottom of the blood ocean. And yet, strangely, it ends on a hopeful note, saying that there might still be hope somewhere out in the stars. Or, lack thereof. There is actually more in the game, though. If you go around the 9th point of interest, instead of just going straight towards it, you can stumble upon a humming monolith, and the wreckage of a ship called the SM-8, an actual research submarine that got invaded by probably the same fish. And if you know anything about the game, everything has a database entry. Well, pretty much everything. So of course the SM8 has a little hidden database entry, which I'll read for you now in a very dramatic way because God, I love acting and I never get a chance to act. Hopefully they don't redact this for updating the database. What most people don't understand is that not all subs are built equal. The SM8 isn't a burner sub, it really is for exploring and surveying blood oceans. If they send you down the iron lung, they don't give a fuck if you come back or if the sub comes back. Because it's a pile of garbage and you're a piece of shit. You come back with photos? Great. You sit down and suffocate quietly? Even better. But if they send the SM8 down, one of the scientists is piloting and they all expect them to return. And now, the SMA is in the blood ocean in pieces. No, not hit a rock pieces or sprung a leak pieces. It looks like something tore it up. And the weirdest thing is that nobody else seems surprised. We might have found the first planetary life since the Rapture, and they're acting like it's no big deal. I know you're next in line for realization in the iron lung, and usually that means you won't be seeing the stars again. But they don't have an SM8 anymore. They have free burner subs and a lot of curiosity about AT5. And maybe that means you have a chance. Hey, settle down. It's not that big of a performance. Thank you. I did my best. Clearly this database entry was written by somebody who actually cares about this random convict and is not supposed to be writing this database entry, so it was either the last person to go down the iron lung or somebody who is on the team sending you down in the iron lung. And if you want somebody else's opinion on who wrote the thing, the wiki article states that the database entry was probably written by the same person who left the note. So, my thoughts on Iron Lung as a game. Yes, I know you came here for my own little theory about like what the true horror of Iron Lung is, but f*** you, I'm doing this section because I love this game. Iron Lung is a great game. It's just a little indie game that's only like an hour long, takes place in just this tiny little submarine, and yet it does so much with what little it has, and its minimalism is even its strength. As I mentioned in the gameplay section, the really minimalistic navigation system means that you are really put into this claustrophobic environment, which aids the thalassophobia feeling of it. And this gameplay theme even goes along with the lore theme of how humanity is essentially trapped in the minimalism of the universe after pretty much everything is gone. And I have another theory for you. Not just the theory about, ooh, what is the hidden horror of Iron Lung, or I guess more so just what's the less talked about horror, but I have another theory about the quiet rapture that I'm not sure if anybody else has come up with, but somebody probably has because this is the internet, and it seems like everybody on the internet really is good at coming up with theories. My personal theory on what the quiet rapture is based off of a strange misinterpretation of the observer effect. The observer effect is a little effect that comes up all the time in every field of study. It is essentially the effect of measuring something in any way changes it slightly. As in using any tool to measure something or observe something causes at the very least a minor change to it. A good example of this could be like a flashlight. Say you're in a dark room and you need to, observe your surroundings, so you turn on a flashlight and look around. Well, this is an example of the observer effect because photons are just tiny little balls of energy, so shining a flashlight on something means that you have added a small bit of energy to that object, meaning you have changed it just by observing it. A much more commonly used example of this is, say, trying to measure your tire pressure, which involves letting out a small bit of the air to measure the pressure of the air. So you have slightly altered the pressure of the air in the tire by measuring the pressure of the air in the tire. But despite the observer effect being caused by the usage of tools, it is commonly misinterpreted as meaning that the conscious observation of something changes something. Basically that the mind shapes the world. This is most often referenced along with the double slit experiment, a very popular particle physics experiment in quantum mechanics. At its most basic, this experiment shows that light and matter act as both waves and particles. This is an effect known as wave-particle duality. Due to the wave-particle duality of submicroscopic particles, and especially subatomic particles, it produces a rather unusual diffraction pattern. You should research it yourself if you're interested, and also tell me if I got anything wrong. Anyways, the variation of this experiment that is important to the observer effect is when they attempt to observe the particles as they're traveling by placing detectors at the slits. As I mentioned, the usage of detectors causes changes to the behavior of particles. causing the result of the experiment to change. Despite the observer effect here being caused by the usage of an electronic detector, many people often take this to mean that somebody consciously observing the particles changes their behavior, and this is of course completely moronic and makes no sense at all, and understandably it has never been proven, though I can understand why people would misinterpret it as that. Hell, even I misinterpreted it as that. Though that was just because I heard that faulty description of it when I was young and never bothered to fact check it until I came up with this video idea. Anyways, back to the double slit experiment. Do you want to know why the electronic detector they were using altered the behavior of the electrons? No? Well, too bad. I love science and I'm going to explain it as best as I can. Say that an electron is a particle being observed in the double slit experiment. The means of detecting them is by striking them with a photon. The striking of the electron of a photon changes its velocity and momentum, hence why the result of the double slit experiment changes when the particles are being observed. To boil this all down, I'm essentially saying that my personal theory on the quiet rapture is this misunderstanding of the observer effect applied to a cosmic scale, where all stars and habitable planets in the universe suddenly vanish due to this infinitely unlikely scenario in which every conscious human was looking away from these planets and stars. This might not explain the blood oceans or why the moons were unaffected, but it's my favorite kind of cosmic horror. I don't really like Lovecraftian horror all that much, with, gods and other such conscious or purposeful forces, but I love physics-based cosmic horror. Just things that are almost entirely plausible and usually extremely simple yet terrifying. And if you like physics-based cosmic horror as much as I do, you should read a little short story by Stephen King called The Jaunt. I won't explain it, at all, so you can go read it yourself, but trust me, it is amazing. I think about it pretty much all the time, because it's such an interesting concept. Anyways. All of that previous nonsense aside, this is what you came for in the video. Here it is. The hidden horror of Iron Lung, or the less talked about horror of Iron Lung, or the true horror of Iron Lung. My personal idea of one of the things that makes Iron Lung such a terrifying game is that this whole scenario of all stars, habitable planets, everything just disappearing from the universe, and all that's left of life is humans, a few trees, and a bunch of oceans of blood. This whole scenario would be survivable by humans. We have survived everything that's ever happened to us on Earth. Why wouldn't we survive it out in space? Well, because of the COI and Eden. This whole situation could be survivable if humanity just finally united under a single name and worked together to make the most of what is left in the universe. But no. These f***ing empires have to continuously fight even at the end of time, and even the gameplay itself reflects this, because you are just a convict sent down in a crude and cruel execution method. Just because some force beyond your will, this empire, decided I'm going to attack this random filament station because this opposite empire owns it. And then this opposite empire decided I'm going to capture these prisoners and then execute them because why f***ing not? And you are just the unwilling victim of this. There is hope out there in this sea of dead stars, but it is being slowly crushed by the fists of these two warring empires. Story of the world, pretty much. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You can click off now if you want, but if you want to hear me continue rambling about things that are completely useless and not at all related to Iron Lung, then stick around for a few seconds because I'm going to be doing that. This little paper on my wall that has a few bullet points here says I need to talk about a few things. First one on the list is to ask something. Do you have any video ideas for me? Just anything. Anything at all. If I can get interested in it, I will make a video about it. Because it took me so long to just find a topic I wanted to make a video about. I really wanted to make another video after I made that last one, but I just couldn't think of anything. So if you have any ideas at all of things I can make videos about, I will look into them. I will see if I'm interested in it, and then I'll try to make a video about it if I am. So please do that. And also, because I am very keen on keeping my academic structure and reputation. I have no academic reputation. What am I talking about? To keep my intellectual honesty, if I got anything at all wrong about especially the observer effect and the double slit experiment, please tell me. I love quantum mechanics. I love learning about quantum mechanics. I love learning about physics in general, hence why I came up with that theory about the quiet rapture. So if I got anything wrong, or if you think I got anything wrong, or if you even just have anything to add to the discussion of anything in this video, please do that. Because I love comments, alright? That's the main reason I wanted to make the second video. Not just because I enjoyed making the video. I mean, that's a large reason for it as well. But, oh my god, I love those comments. I love them so much. I love just reading them. Even, like, the terrible ones that were, like, made me question my sanity. I loved it. I love just reading people's comments, especially the nice comments. Like, everybody who left a comment on that last video and is currently watching this video, thank you. I don't care if you left some, like, racist comment. I don't care if you left something insulting me. If you left a comment, thank you. And especially if you left a comment complimenting that last video. I don't know why you would do that. I hate that last video, alright? It was very nice to make. I put a lot of work into it, but it was not good, you know? It was my first video, so it makes sense that it wasn't good. And I will improve, and just thank you for complimenting it and enjoying it. I just don't know how you enjoyed it. But, thank you anyways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The video is over now. I'm going now. I will make another video soon, if I can come up with a video idea. I have a whole list of them. Also, give me more ideas, as I said. Goodbye.